Sometimes God will put you in your place, y'all, and show you aren't in control. Like, there's nothing about my life that is a setback. There is exhaustion that comes from trying to micromanage outcomes that are outside of our jurisdiction. Your "why is this happening to me" moment is not outside of his control. It's outside of your control, and that's an us problem. What do you do when your life doesn't look anything like what you've prayed for? You believed, you trusted God, you held on to his promises, and yet somehow you're standing in a reality that looks and feels disappointing. The tension between what you hoped God would do and what he actually allows is a space nobody really prepares us for. I'm Angie, and this is The Tender Wife. Every Sunday we have faith-filled conversations on marriage, wife life, womanhood, and healing. Your journey is sacred to me, and we talk about the vulnerability behind it. Welcome to today's episode. You may click off this video. I don't know. I hope you stick around, but I just wanted to be transparent and throw this disclaimer out there. I may or may not say something that you have already heard. I don't know what's about to come out. I just know that this is one of those topics where we've heard it all before, and this is more of an episode to help you feel seen and to help you understand that you are not alone in this Christian journey. The Christian journey is so tough. It's so tedious sometimes, and we need community to help us get through, these trying times, these trials and tribulations. And so I just wanted to throw the disclaimer out there that as we go through this episode, I want you to understand that you are not alone. Nobody talks about the kind of faith that it takes to trust God when everything you believed he told you just falls apart. And it's so easy to say God is in control when life is going good, but it's so hard to say God is in control when you feel like everything is just out of control. I remember in June 2024, my husband fractured his tuberosity, I think it's called. It's somewhere in the rotator cuff, and it's extremely important, right? And so he went out of work. He was out of work. He ended up being out of work for like 6 to 8 months or something like that. But at the time, June 13th or something around the time it happened, I remember asking God, like, why is this happening to us? He's not going to be making the amount of money that he's making. So we're going to have to make some adjustments, and hopefully we don't end up in a state of destitution and just lose things. And it was a whole process that we went through and just trying to understand God and why this was happening. So fast forward to a year later, we found out, so we have a cluster of churches, and then it makes up this association. So each church meets on a specific weekend. And so I want to say about a year later, a pastor stepped down at 2 of his churches, and my husband ended up taking over 2 of his churches, which means he pastors 3 churches. And so it came back to us, and we started understanding, like, okay, this happened. He had to be removed from that job because he never would have left on his own. It was good benefits. It was good pay. Everything was just right. But had he wouldn't have been able to serve God's people and do what he was truly called to do, which was preach the word, had he been locked down at that job, because that job is also very demanding. Either you're going to work Friday nights or you're going to work Sunday nights. There's no having both. And so Friday nights wouldn't work because Saturday he could have possibly missed his conferences that he needed to be at for some of these churches. And then Sunday, who wants to be in church all week or all day and then have to turn around and go to work and work all night? And so all of this, we understood that all of that happened for a reason. All the trials and tribulations we went through in the second half of 2024 and then early 2025 happened for a particular, or not early 2025, from the half June to December, happened for a particular reason. And he worked everything out for our good in the end. And there is a difference in trusting God and understanding God. We will not always understand what God is doing and why he's doing it, because he is all knowing. We are not. A preacher that I know, he always says God can see We can see to the corner, but God can see around the corner. Basically, he can see things that we just can't even imagine. Like, he created us. He knows us. Like, from the womb, he designed us. He knows when we're going to have an expiration date. He knows the trials and tribulations that we're going to go through. He knows all of this. And faith and total trust in him is conceding without answers. Like, trusting that I don't need to have all the answers, because I trust in an all-knowing God that has all the answers and that loves me, and he's not going to steer me in a direction that is not going to be conducive to, things that are good for me. And trusting God means believing he is right even when your life feels wrong. He knows if nobody else knows. And that's where we have to have faith as small as a mustard seed, and understand the intricacies of our plans. And faith, like a mustard seed, it's not about having necessarily more faith or an abundance of faith, but it's about having real, genuine faith that is unmovable and faith that is unshakable. And as a Christian, we have to be extremely, extremely careful with investing too much theory and time and devotion into this infamous 5-year plan. And listen, plans are good, right? There's that quote out there, you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. Listen, I am not knocking plans. God gives us common sense for a reason. We must plan. And the Bible does not discourage us from planning. What the Bible does is gives us guidelines and tries to help us understand what we need to plan, how we need to plan it, and what the ultimate purpose is of these plans. And one of those is, yes, we are to make plans, but we are to submit them to God. If you read the book of Proverbs, it is a wonderful book to read, y'all. I read it every January, and I want to start going back to reading it every July too, because, and this is RIP to my granny grand. I'm filming this actually on the 3rd anniversary of her death. Shout out to her. She was just a true gem and just gave me some life lessons. And when I was a kid, she told me to read Proverbs on the months that have 31 days, because it's 31 Proverbs. And so it's something she told me to read at the beginning of the year, just start off your year strong, because there's so much wisdom and so much gold in the book of Proverbs. And so that's something I still do to this day, is read Proverbs. But like I said, I want to start reading it in July as well, because that's mid-year, and sometimes we need that mid-year recap reminder. But if you look at it, Proverbs will tell you that you are to commit your actions to the Lord and your plans will succeed. Commit, submit to God. Like, we need to be talking to him. We need to be aligned with him. It also reminds us that we can make our plans, but it's the Lord that determines our steps. We should plan, but we also need to remember that God directs what happens. Also, seeking God's will in our plans. The scripture says that we can make all the plans that we want, but it's the Lord's purpose that will prevail. Meaning, plans should be made with the desire to follow God's will. I remember my husband was very big on, hey, we don't really need to say anything else. We don't need to have no form and fashion prayer. All we have to do is say the Lord's Prayer, and it pretty much covers everything that we need in life. More specifically, let thy will be done. If his will is done, we know that everything is going to be all right. We have ways that seem right to us, but we're not all knowing. We don't know what's down the line, what God is trying to save us from, what he's trying to redirect. We don't have the answers, but he has the answers. And also, it is a reminder when we're creating these plans. If you look in the 4th chapter of the book of James, it warns people about being arrogant and prideful about what it is that they're going to do tomorrow. Like, if I was to go out and be like, this is what I'm going to do tomorrow, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to have that, and I'm going to, I'm going to do all these things and stuff. But it tells us, like, life is but a vapor. And it also tells us that if you read down to like that 15th verse, I want to say, it says what we ought to say. And it's, if the Lord's will, this is what we're going to do. Because if it's not in his will, it's not going to happen. And we have to be full-blown obedient Christians, not partial obedient Christians, but full-blown obedient Christians to understand that if it's his will, then it's going to happen. I can say what I'm going to do all I want, but if it's not in his will, then that's it. Like, there's nothing I can do about that. And planning anything in your life or anything that you do without acknowledging God, like I said, it's prideful and it's arrogant, and it's not something that is going to get you pretty far. Planning, to me, is a part of wisdom, and it's a part of diligence. If you read in Proverbs, it talks about, it backs this claim up, right? How good planning and hard work lead to prosperity, but having, being hasty and, creating shortcuts is what leads to poverty. In the book of Luke, I want to say, if you read over in, I'm pulling out my Bible now, Luke 14:28, it talks about, it says, and I'm going to read the New Living Translation version because I just want you guys to have a good understanding. I generally read the King James Version, but it says, "But don't begin until you count the cost. For who would begin construction of a building without first calculating the cost to see if there is enough money to finish it?" This is planning. Planning is praised in the Bible. So many figures in the Bible plan things, and we didn't even realize that they were planning things. If you look at Moses, he appointed leaders over groups and delegated smaller matters. Good planning includes structure and knowing that you can't do it all by yourself. So the Bible is very clear about making these plans, but it's also clear about submitting to the Lord, not being arrogant, and just making sure that it truly aligns with his will. And in order to do that, we have to be tapped in with him. That's why discernment is key, knowing his voice. The Bible says that my sheep know my voice, and a stranger they won't follow. And we're going to talk about the voices a little bit later on, because sometimes we can hear God, but because we desire something, we force this response in our head that's going to align with what we want, and that's how we end up in trouble. The traumatizing part when it comes to plans is that our plans sometimes fail. And when we think of idols in the Bible, right? We think of Baal, they were worshiping different things and stuff like that. But in current day, when we think of idols, we generally think of idolizing like a person or a relationship, but you can idolize the intangible. And the desire to have total certainty, to me, is idolatry. I remember one time, this is so crazy, because I remember one time I was younger and I told somebody that I wanted to know when I was going to die. And it was like, girl, why would you even want to know that? Because what? You wouldn't be doing half the things and acting half the way like if you knew certain things about your life, because the journey gets hard, we get discouraged, and there are certain paths God makes us go down intentionally. My husband always says that, the children, when they, cross through, the Red Sea, I think the Bible says that God took them the way of, meaning that, I think I'm quoting this right, meaning that God could have took them a shorter way or a route that was easier, but he took him that way for a purpose and for a reason. I love when he quotes that for some reason, because it just it's a constant reminder of, hey, I'm not being detoured in life. Like, there's nothing about my life that is a setback. This is literally all a setup. But back to idolatry. We know what idolatry is. It's like when we focus on something else other than Jesus, like we put our faith into something, we're worshiping something, and our worship is misdirected. And desiring total certainty over your life is idolatry. It's idolatry of control. We get so consumed with control that we forget to worship. We forget to pray. We focus on what we don't have. All the things that God commanded us not to do. When we desire that control, we lose focus of what's important, because we're now focusing on what we can do. There is exhaustion. Whew, there is exhaustion that comes from trying to micromanage outcomes that are outside of our jurisdiction. Think about supervisors in a specific department, like the supervisor in the jewelry department. If that supervisor tries to go over to the clothing department and micromanage that out, and try to, justify and do whatever it is to do, when they get involved, they will exhaust themselves when they should have just stayed and focused on their jewelry department. And that's what we have to remember. Sometimes, a lot of the times, we can self-inflict annoyances on ourselves. Sometimes we create these emotions that don't need to be there. I'm currently in the process of writing a book, and I was talking about how in the hymn, What a Friend We Have in Jesus, it says, "Oh, what needless pain we bear." I never thought they were saying like our pain is pointless and there's no purpose in it, but more so is needless because we self-inflicted these emotions by trying to carry things on our own when we're not meant to carry these things. And so we have this, when we're trying to do these things and carry these emotions from, trying to have control over a situation, we go through these different emotions. We go through disappointments with, what we think our life should look like. Sometimes we even get disappointed with God. And as much as we hate to admit it and say it, but that's a real thing. Like, Lord, why? Why did you do this? Why is this happening to me? Then we have like these emotions of defense mechanisms where we try to act like things are not bothering us, but they really are. We try to say, I'm okay with not having this. I've done this before where I'm like, well, I'm okay with not having this, but it's more of not trusting God. It's more of a defense mechanism. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not me saying like, I don't want this stuff because I trust God in, what his no is helping me out in. It's more like a defense mechanism. Like, well, I don't want it anyway. When that's a whole dang on lie. Then we have these emotions of feeling confused. Like, did I hear God wrong? And sometimes we hear God very clearly. Like I said earlier, we hear God very clearly, but we get fearful and then we go the other way, or we can get into this state of thinking because we desire something so much that we heard him say what we thought what we wanted to hear him say, and it doesn't work out that way. So now we're leaning on our own understanding, and we're not leaning on the understanding that is God's will. Then we deal with temptation to rush things, and we force outcomes, and we just rush processes that are meant for us to sit and learn something in. Anchoring our identity. We have to anchor our identity not in the fluctuating circumstances like of the current season, but we have to anchor our identity in an unchanging God, an unchanging creator. Maverick City Music has this song. I don't know if it's called Promises or something like that, but the song talks about how seasons change, but you remain the same. And that line always hits me because it's like, no matter what is going on, no matter what fluctuates, fall, winter, spring, like the seasons change. Seasons in our life are, grief, it's pain, it's, bad children, it's a loss of a job. Like all these things we go through, we fluctuate, emotions up and down. We have hormones. We have, just different things that's happening in our life. But God remains the same through it all. And if that's not comforting, what is going to comfort you? And listen, I've been in a position, like I said, I've been in a position where I have, and I'm embarrassed to say, where I have questioned God. And I asked, and I was just frustrated, just trying to understand. And if you're in a state of constantly questioning God, and you feel like he has forsaken you, and you feel left behind, and you feel like, why is this happening to me? Let me tell you something. Look for God in the process and not in the outcome. Look for God in the process. And when you're looking for God in the process, you can learn your lesson. The worst mistake is the one you did not learn from. When you see God in a situation, you see trust, you see faith, you see him working everything out for your good. And I think for us to truly understand that God's plans are, greater than ours, and they mean so much more than us, is we need to understand God's sovereignty. And so I wanted to read something from the book of Daniel. That's why I pulled out my phone. And it is in the 4th chapter. And I believe it is the 35th verse, I want to say. I'm going to read the King James version of this part, and then we'll just, I'll just summarize it. It is in Daniel chapter 4, verse 35, and it says, "And all the inhabitants of the earth are reputed as nothing, and he doeth according to his will in the army of heaven and among the inhabitants of the earth. And none can stay his hand or say unto him, What doest thou?" He does as he pleases. And there's not a person that can say, what do you mean by these things? God's sovereignty means that God has complete authority. He has complete power and control over everything. That means the good, the bad, and the indifferent. Nothing is going to happen outside of his knowledge, outside of his permission, which we saw that in Job, or ultimate purpose, which we saw that in the garden. God is in control, even when our life feels out of control. Nothing random is happening to your life right now that he doesn't know about. He made us. He created us. He set our bounds. He knows the expiration date of us, which means he knows everything that we're going to go through, every trial, every tribulation, every up, every up and down. He knows all this. And so when we're going through things, we need to understand that there is nothing needless or pointless happening. And if you look back on your life and you think about a time where something bad has happened to you in your life, and you realize that it all, like the example I gave you, you realize it all worked out for your good in the end. I know. And this is how I help get through things in my life. The older I get, the easier this concept gets, because God has moved. His hand has been on my life the entire time, and his hand has been on your life the entire time too. All you have to do is remember the days of old. Remember the time that he got you out of that bad situation. And I'm not talking about a bad relationship. I'm talking about like where you couldn't pay a bill, or you didn't know what was going to happen with a particular situation, but he worked it out for your good in the end. Think about a time where something, awful has happened to you, and you realize, wait a minute, there was value that needed to happen for this particular thing to happen. Like if that didn't happen, then this wouldn't have happened. It's all for a purpose. Like I said earlier, your delays, your detours, they're not accidents. They're not fruitless. Your why is this happening to me moment is not outside of his control. It's outside of your control, and that's an us problem. But it's not outside of his control. And because, like I said, he is all knowing. He knows everything. As long as it's not outside of his control, it doesn't matter if it's not in my control. First of all, I don't want it to be in my control. I can't even handle certain situations, certain little situations around the house. Like, how am I supposed to be able to handle bigger situations? Like, if we really break it down to ourselves, we really ain't hitting on nothing. So we need our God. We need him to direct our path. His plans override ours. Now, this doesn't mean that he doesn't care about the desires of our heart, or like, like our feelings don't matter. That's not what it says, because scripture tells us countless times, like, delight yourself in the Lord and he will give you the desires of your heart. Asking you and you shall receive. Like, he cares about the things that we desire and all that. It means that what he's trying to get us to see is that he sees the bigger picture. He sees the past, he sees the present, and he sees the future. And he leads and guides us accordingly. Why would you want to lead and guide yourself? And I have to ask myself this all the time. Why do I want to lead and guide myself when I cannot see but what's right in front of me? Sometimes I can barely even see that. Y'all know how we get stupid sometimes in situations. Why would I want that? I want an all-knowing God, a sovereign God, fully trusting in him to lead me, and know that, I don't understand it at this time, but I will by and by. Our desires, if they don't align with God's will, we're just not going to get it. And we have to remember that when we're asking God and we're making these plans and we're doing these things, like, just let your will be done. Lord, I desire this, but I know you know better. Sovereignty, also, it does not mean that things are going to feel good and look good all the time. All the things that happen in our life are not great. We suffer with pain, and I remember my back pain, like that was terrible. I remember my throat condition. I had a bacterial infection last year that was causing me to have swallowing issues. I remember asking the Lord, please just come get me, because this is not quality of life right now. Loss, grieving. Like I said, today's my great grandmother's 3-year anniversary. Disappointments that you have, disagreements, misunderstandings, the friendship that, was ruined, the breakup that you went through. All of that is for something greater. And here's the thing, we may live to see it or we may not live to see it. Everybody did not make it to the promised land. Job, in all his suffering, it was for greater understanding. Like, selfishly, Job's story was for me. Sometimes stuff is going to happen and life is just going to suck. And I hate to say it like that, but as I said in previous episodes, God uses our struggles to strengthen us, to improve us. If you hold out and endure to the end, you will reap if you faint not. Like, that's the word. God uses our struggles to refine us. And that's just the honest to God truth. And we have to understand that these struggles is for a reason. It could be to cultivate your character. I, think back when Nate and I were living in the motels and things like that. I did not grow up poor. I grew up very privileged. I got everything that I needed. 99% of the things that I wanted. Like, I did not grow up understanding struggle. Now, I don't know what was really going on downstairs, but I did not grow up understanding struggle. That's not my testimony. But guess what? When I got into adulthood and I was sleeping in these nasty motels because I didn't have a pot to piss in and a window to throw it out, 2 nickels to rub together and all that other stuff the old people be saying, I didn't have none of that. I needed that. I would like to think that if I didn't go through those things, I would still be, empathetic person and be able to resonate with, people and stuff like that. But I don't know that for certain. My character was truly refined and strengthened and improved through that particular situation. Had I not gone through that, I can't say what I would have been like. I could have been a stuck-up person, uppity. Honestly, if I'm just keeping it a buck. It could be to expose what you are idolizing. Sometimes God will put you in your place, y'all, and show you that you aren't in control, and to show you that what you are doing is not honoring him. He has the power to expose things. There's always, tiny voices in, that God is in our head and stuff like that, and God is trying to get our attention, and we ignore it until boom, he hits us with something bigger because we refuse to be fully 100% obedient. It's always going to point you back, regardless of what he's trying to teach you. Like, it's always going to point you towards something greater. That I can firmly stand on. That redirection is protection. That friendship that is no longer in existence happened for a reason. That death had to occur, and none of this, what we're going through, is pointless. We don't understand that because his ways are higher than our understanding. We can't even grasp, not even like just a little bit. Sovereignty can feel like confusion. It can feel like waiting. It can feel like letting go of what you thought, your life would be like. And grieving who you thought you would be is a real thing. And there's like no funeral for it. You just have to suck it up. You kind of just have to not even suck it up. You recognize it, acknowledge it, right? But understand that I'm a new person. Or I'm going to be a new creature, and all this is for a purpose. I can sit up here and tell you guys, honestly, I don't have the things that I thought I would have at 37. I'm not where I thought I would be at 37. There's a lot of things in that I thought I would have, and places that I would be at this age that is just not, it's not there. And I stopped with the defense mechanisms and I started saying, like, Lord, I trust you. If this is not happening to me or for me, it's for a purpose. I can think that something is going to be good for me. I can think that I'm going to nurture something, or, this asset that I want. I could think all of these things. But God really, truly knows my thoughts before I even think them. Like, he knows really what I can handle and what I cannot handle. And the quicker that we get out of our feelings, the quicker that we get out of our emotions, the more we can see God, the quicker we can see God in the situation, in him working, in his hand truly over our life. Us thinking that we are in control is us thinking that we are more powerful than God. It's an arrogant thing. And it's like, sometimes I feel like as a Christian, it's like, because we can't see him, we get confused over like what he's actually capable of doing. And that's why reading our word and staying connected to him is so significant. It really is the key to having a peaceful life. Because when we start feeling like, oh, we can't see him, he's not physically here, when we read our word, we feel him down in our spirit. We feel him down in our heart. We feel that tug. We feel that pull. We know that that person that randomly came up to us and was like, keep your head up, God got you, or said something about a situation that they didn't know nothing about. Like, we know, or we see, okay, wait a minute, that is God in him. That is God talking to me. But we have to release that control. The moral of this story really is very, very simple. He is working things towards his purpose. We are not here for us. We are vessels. We're not here forever. We're just pilgrims passing through. And we are here for his purpose, to glorify God. We all have something to do in life, and then that's it. And it's all for the glory of God. Never get too big and too high-minded to think that your plans are greater than God's. Stay humble, stay low. Plan, but pray. And know that if things don't go how you desire them to go, in the end, you're going to understand it. You're going to understand it. Though people say you understand it better by and by. Trust me when I tell you, you are going to understand it. And you're going to appreciate it so much more when you get to that part. The greatest thing that I have experienced in life is getting to the part where I understand why God did what he did. Like, why I had to go through that particular situation to get to where I am now. You're not alone in this journey. I hope you guys understand that you are not alone in this journey. I'm here with you navigating uncertain futures. But I'm okay with navigating an uncertain future because I am trusting in an all-knowing God. My future is uncertain to me, but it's not uncertain to the person who created me. And I trust that he will direct my steps. But like I said, we have to get spiritually disciplined. And that is through honoring him through, like, you know, worship music, and most importantly, getting in that Bible and reading that Bible. Because whatever it is that you are feeling, the Bible is going to shift you into the proper direction. You can read any story in the Bible and it will help you in this particular situation. If you go down to Joseph, if you go down to Abraham, if you go down to Job, especially, even the life of Jesus, his story, and what he went through on the cross. It's all for a particular purpose. And when you think of faith and having faith and trusting God, remember that story of Abraham and how he took his son up and he was about to kill his son. But he trusted God. For those of you who have kids, like I'm pretty certain in today's time, you'd be like, wait, what? What we finna do? And why we finna do it? But it was all for a particular purpose, and we have to have faith. We have to get grounded and rooted in that faith. And so I'm rambling a little bit, so I'm going to end the episode. But I just wanted to share and talk about these things. Like, it's okay to have plans, but study those guidelines that we talked about. But yes, God is good all the time, and all the time, God is good, okay? Our future is really not uncertain. And we just have to trust that. Let Jesus lead you, and you will never go wrong. Anyway, guys, this is a space where becoming is holy, healing is allowed, and marriage is honored. Hope you enjoyed this episode today. Remember that you are not alone in this journey. You know, community is very, very important. Get yourself, like I said in the previous episode, get yourself some praying friends. Get yourself some type of Bible study club, whatever you have to do to strengthen your faith, for you to understand that your plans are not God's plans, and he's an all-knowing God, and that he will not steer you in the wrong direction. Even if you think you're going down the wrong path, hear his voice, know his voice, follow it, and you will be all right. In the meantime, stay anchored, stay becoming.